I'd been in the apartment 3 weeks before I understood what was happening. 3 weeks of thinking it was just a quirk. Wrong numbers, misdirected calls, the usual friction of moving somewhere new. I kept picking up and explaining politely that I was the new tenant, and no, I didn't know how to reach the previous one. The apartment was in the 11th arrondissement, 4th floor, no lift. Well, there was a lift, but it was a small iron cage, and I didn't trust it after the first week. The building was pre-war, the walls thick enough that you couldn't hear the neighbors, which sounds like a good thing. It isn't when you're new to a city and the silence in the evenings starts to feel like something. The calls came every few days, always for Elise. Sometimes it was friends who'd clearly lost touch, cheerful voices asking if she wanted to meet for lunch. Sometimes it was what sounded like family. The French was too fast for me to catch much, but I got the name every time. Elise. Always Elise. I'd say she didn't live here anymore, and they'd go quiet for a moment, then apologize and hang up. Then one evening in October, an older woman called. Her French was slow and very clear, like she was used to speaking to people who didn't quite follow. When I told her Elise had moved out, she didn't apologize. She just said, "Non, elle a dit qu'elle ne partait pas." She said she wasn't going anywhere. Then she hung up. I asked my landlord about it the next morning. He was a small man who communicated mostly through shrugs and seemed perpetually irritated by the existence of tenants. But when I mentioned Elise, he stopped shrugging. He said the previous tenant had passed away 4 months ago in the apartment. She had been found by a neighbor after several days. I sat with that for a while after he left. The apartment looked different somehow. Not the walls or the furniture. Mine was sparse enough that nothing of Elise was visibly left. But the light came in differently when I thought about it. The rooms felt less empty and more waiting. That probably sounds irrational. It felt completely real. The calls kept coming. I thought about changing the number or unplugging the phone, but something stopped me. I kept picking up. I told myself I was doing it so I could tell people what had happened, so they'd know, so they could grieve properly instead of leaving cheerful voicemails for someone who was gone. That was part of it. Honestly, I think I'd also started listening for the old woman again. She called again 2 weeks later. Same slow, clear French. This time she asked who I was. I told her my name, Sarah, and there was a pause, and she said, "Ah, Sarah," like she'd been expecting it, like she knew it already and had just been waiting for me to confirm it. I asked how she knew Elise. She said they were old friends. She asked if I was settling in, whether I'd found everything I needed. I said yes, mostly. She asked if the radiator in the bedroom still made that sound in the evenings, that specific low clang, she said, around 8 o'clock when the heat came on. I said yes, it did. She said it was a good apartment. She said Elise had loved it very much. And then she said something I've gone over many times since. She said she was glad the apartment had someone in it again who appreciated quiet. I hadn't said anything about liking quiet. I hadn't described myself at all. She called 4 more times over the next month. Each time she knew something she shouldn't. She mentioned the stack of books on the kitchen table, which was accurate. She asked if I'd found the loose floorboard near the bathroom door. I had, and had been meaning to mention it to the landlord. She said Elise never got round to it either. The last call came on a Tuesday morning in November. She asked if I'd had my tea yet. I said I was just making some. She asked if I still used the red kettle. I stopped. I looked at the red kettle on my counter. My kettle, bought from a shop on Rue de la Roquette 3 weeks before. Something I had owned for less than a month. Something no one would have known about unless they had been inside my apartment very recently. I asked her directly. I said, "How do you know about the kettle?" There was a long silence. Then she said, very gently, that Elise had always liked red things. I said the kettle was mine. I said I bought it here. She just said, "Oui, je sais." Yes, I know. Then the line went quiet. I unplugged the landline that afternoon, coiled the cord, put it in the bottom of the wardrobe. I told myself that was the end of it. People grieve strangely. Old women say strange things.